When someone threatens your character, even if they're wrong, using violence only proves that they're right. And sometimes what you can do when someone is dragging your name is do nothing. Just let them. Because not every insult requires a defense. Because when someone attacks your character, sometimes they're just trying to bait you into a lower version of yourself. So had David used this opportunity to regain power over Shimei, who was throwing insults, stones, and dust on David, if David used violence to defend himself and to punish Shimei, then David would have proved Shimei to be right. Even Abishai, David's nephew, reacted with immediate violence. And he said to David, let me go over and cut off his head. And to me, this shows that Abishai is saltpeter-coated, because that's not the first time that Abishai wanted to respond with violence. Abishai and his brother Joab, they were ruthless, and David didn't want them to exact justice on his behalf. Keep in mind that David was passing through Bahurim, which was a small village on the eastern slope of the Mount of Olives. It was at the edge of the Jordan Valley and the Judean wilderness. It was a gateway out of the civilized world. It was known as a no man's land or a desert. It wasn't David's destination, but he was passing through. Because David's strategy was to put a desert and a river in between him and Absalom's army. But the timing of Shimei's attack was brutal. Because number one, David and his men, they were physically exhausted. They had just climbed up Mount of Olives barefoot with dust on their heads. They were grieving the loss of the throne and their home and their families staying behind. And the betrayal of their families. Because the nobles stayed in the palace in the kingdom with Absalom and they were supporting him. Shimei cursing at David and throwing stones and dust while David said nothing could have cost David the loyalty of his men, because they're looking up to David as their king, even though he's fleeing Absalom. They're watching David, who could have ended Shimei's life, enduring the insults. And this could have led them to abandon David, because if you cannot use your power to protect yourself, how can you protect us? I think the lesson here is to not get too caught up when people are insulting you or mischaracterizing you. You don't always have to defend yourself. And keep in mind that these people sometimes come when you are on your transition era or when you're at your lowest point, because they're meant to discourage you. They're meant to rile you up so that you can get out of character and so that you can forget where you're going. Because if David defended himself, then he would have stayed in Bahurim a little bit longer when it was supposed to be a transition into safety. And staying there longer would have exposed him more. The insults against David, they were grave. Although he wasn't directly responsible for the deaths of Saul, Jonathan, Saul's other two sons, Abner and Ishbosheth, and he even placed Mephibosheth, Saul's grandson, he invited him to eat at his table. Even though David was not directly responsible for all of these things, he did not feel the need to defend himself. If anything, he said, let him curse me, because maybe God told him to curse me. He was banking that God would see his suffering and God would have pity on him and pay him back with blessings. So if they're speaking behind your back, just let them. Or they're insulting you or whatever they're trying to do to make you lose your blessings, just let them. Because God may see that you're suffering and he might pay you back with blessings.